When we talk about cybersecurity, we usually think about protecting data, right? Firewalls, passwords, all that technical stuff. But what if I told you its most important job is actually guarding something way more fragile? Let's get into it. You've heard this a million times, I know. But in our digital world, it's never been more true. You can spend decades earning your customers' trust, and just one single cyber attack can vaporize it in an instant. And that leads us to this idea of an unseen reputation crisis. This is where the real damage happens. It's not about the servers that crash, it's about the trust that vanishes. And once that trust is gone, that feeling spreads like wildfire long after you fix the technical problem. So let's be super clear on this. The real fight isn't on your network, it's in the court of public opinion. Once you have a breach, it becomes a permanent stain on your brand. It's a story that people will tell about you forever. And this isn't some minor issue that companies are kinda worried about. Oh no. A recent study found that a whopping 78% of professionals say reputational damage is their absolute #1 concern after a cyber attack. Not losing data, not system downtime, it's their reputation. So, what actually happens when that trust just disappears? Well, the fallout is fast and it's painful. The real cost isn't measured in broken hardware, it's measured in the customers who just get up and walk away. And how many walk away? Brace yourself for this one. Research shows that 70%, 70 of customers would just stop doing business with a company after a security incident. We're talking 7 out of every 10 people just gone. And the damage isn't just one thing. It's like a triple threat. This 2024 study from Hiskosk found that after a breach, 47% of businesses suddenly find it almost impossible to attract new customers. On top of that, 43% lose the customers they already had. And to make it all worse, 38% get slammed with terrible press. It literally attacks your business from every angle, past, present, and future. And you better believe this shows up on the balance sheet. IBM calculated the average cost of a data breach at almost $5 million. But here's the kicker. A massive piece of that, $1.3 million, is officially classified as lost business value. That's the price tag for shattered trust. Of course, these aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are real, painful stories about some of the biggest brands you can think of. Let's take a look at a few of these cautionary tales. First up, Yahoo. Remember them? An absolute giant of the early internet, a household name. But a series of absolutely catastrophic breaches didn't just leak user data, it revealed a deep-seated weakness that took a sledgehammer to its market value. How much, you ask? Well, when Verizon was in the middle of buying Yahoo, they chopped their offer by $350 million. That number, right there, is the market's cold, hard assessment of how much Yahoo's reputation was worth after being destroyed. Okay, next, let's talk about Target. Their breach back in 2013 was an absolute nightmare. It happened during the holiday shopping season, the worst possible time. But the biggest shockwave wasn't felt by shoppers, it was felt in the boardroom. The result was swift. The CEO was forced to resign. That sent a clear message to the entire corporate world. Accountability for a major data breach goes all the way to the very top. No excuses. And finally, we have to talk about Equifax. Oh man, their story is basically a textbook on what not to do. The breach itself was terrible, but it was their slow, confusing, and totally clumsy response that turned a disaster into a full-blown catastrophe. And the price for that failure? A settlement that could go as high as $700 million. But even more than the money, Equifax became the poster child for how to completely fail in a crisis. They proved that how you talk about a breach can be just as damaging as the breach itself. Okay, I know these stories are grim, but the goal here isn't to scare you, it's to get you ready. So let's pivot away from the problem and start talking about the solution. Let's look at a framework for actually protecting your brand. So the source material breaks it down into 4 key pillars. First, you've got to build a security-aware culture, making security everybody's responsibility. Second, you obviously need strong technical safeguards. Think of these as the locks and alarms on your digital house. Third, you need a plan for transparent communication before a crisis ever hits. And finally, none of this works without real leadership that sees security as a core part of the business, not just some IT problem. And, that first one, culture, it might just be the most important piece of the puzzle. The whole goal is to create a company where every single employee, from the CEO to the intern, gets how important their role is. It makes security a shared mission, not just a task for the tech team. When you put all this together, it really forces you to make a huge mental shift. We have to completely change the way we think about the money we spend on security. Look, on one side, you have the old way of thinking. Cybersecurity is an IT expense. It's just a cost of doing business. But the smarter way, the right way to look at it is as brand insurance. It's not a cost. It is a strategic investment in the single most precious asset your company has, your customers' trust. So I'll just leave you with this one question to mull over. When you and your organization are planning your budget, are you just paying to protect data, or are you actually investing in protecting the future of your brand's good name?